do it.
Let's talk some Twins here. Some Twin statements here. A Friday trade that went down. We thought maybe we should do an emergency episode. And like, I don't know.
Did we really think that? I just saw a couple of tweets saying, "Are you going to do one?" And I'm like,
the Twins need to earn our emergency episodes back. We gave you one for the Carlos Correa, but that's not my first statement, by the way, that the Twins need to earn our
you're done now.
emergency episode.
Not that close.
But here's my first statement, okay? This looks like a good trade for the Twins, but I am not a doctor. So I just want to preface by saying that. We've been burned in the past by saying, this looks like a good trade. And then you Google, Tyler Mahle's shoulder or something. Now, Pablo Lopez, much like all pitchers, has had some stuff before, but nothing imminent, it looks like. He's a rock solid. So the trade was, for anyone that just wasn't paying attention to this from Friday through the weekend, or you were caught out watching football, the Twins traded the American League batting champion Luis Arraez, who has, I believe, 3 years of team control left, right? And they receive a good, solid middle of the rotation, a good, solid number 3 starter on a playoff team, potentially, Pablo Lopez, 27 years old, gonna be. And also the Marlins' 5th best prospect, according to MLB Pipeline, infielder Jose Salas, and then another prospect in outfielder Byron Churrillo. So you're getting, I think, Arraez for Pablo Lopez, kind of similar in that you're trading a pretty good, solid player. Arraez is a good batting average on base guy, doesn't hit for power, not really fast in his position's first base, where his offense doesn't really rise up as much. So I think you're trading a good position player with some team control for a good starting pitcher with some team control, and you're getting a couple good prospects back. So it's not really about money. It's just kind of a baseball trade. And the Twins feel like they need to continue to add starting pitching depth because they've been unable to produce it from within themselves. So on paper, looks like a decent baseball trade unless you are in love with Luis Arraez and think that he can now be like a modern Tony Gwynn going forward or something, which I don't know that this is repeatable. I think he had a good pop-up season, but what do you guys think?
If it pleases the panel, I would like to recklessly speculate on a Monday instead of waiting until Thursday.
Reckless speculation.
Thank you. So the interesting thing about this is there was, Dan Hayes in The Athletic, about a month or so ago, perhaps a little bit more than a month ago. It was pointed out, and I think it probably came from informed people, that Sonny Gray, Tyler Mahle, and Kenta Maeda are all free agents after 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And that Sonny Gray, because the last two on my list, of course, have been hurt because the Twins, got guys hurt, that Sonny Gray might be shopped at some point in time here. That could be the trade deadline in July. But, right now, you've got Gray, Ryan, Mahle, Maeda, Lopez, and then your own guys who you like some of, okay? What if we aren't done yet? And I'm not saying this would be popular, but recklessly speculating, what if we were to see Sonny Gray packaged with a guy that they want to trade but can't, Max Kepler, in spring training in a trade, which would now, I mean, I wouldn't love that trade, but it does seem like you've created a plethora of starters, assuming that they aren't hurt still. You've created a long list of starters that gives you some potential wiggle room to get out of a contract when you know that you're probably not going to pay that guy in 2024 and beyond. Thoughts?
Here's my problem, I guess. If you trade Sonny Gray, and I need to know, are you getting major leaguers back or are you getting prospect capital?
I would guess a little bit of both, perhaps, depending on what you trade.
Okay.
But yes.
I just feel like you're kind of spinning plates here. You know what? So you're how are they getting better than what they've been the last couple of years? So keeping Correa doesn't make you better.
Yep.
It maintains you, right?
Yep.
Okay, so swapping out Sonny Gray for Pablo Lopez doesn't make you better. It maintains you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get better to simplify this. So that's what I'm curious about. And maybe some of it is Buxton stays healthier and and maybe some of your pitchers with a new trainer aren't going down with injuries. Maybe you trust a couple of these pitchers to go a little deeper into games and preserve your bullpen more often. But what are we? The Kenta Maeda thing too. Zero trade value there right now.
Yeah,
the guy hasn't pitched in 2 years.
Yep,
and he's like 35.
Yeah,
he turns 35 on April 11th, coming off Tommy John surgery. So this isn't the guy that almost won the Cy Young Award, 3 years ago anymore.
correct.
So I would prefer them. They're in a win now window. You got Carlos Correa at prime, Byron Buxton prime. Who knows how long he's going to be able to even play, right? You got a couple other guys that probably are going to be around still and in their prime, like Polanco. You got what's his name? My guy Joey Gallo. Like, your team is kind of ready-made now with the core position players that you have. I'd rather them just keep Sonny Gray at this point, and if you need to trade him at the trade deadline, if things are going poorly, then trade him at the trade deadline. But
That's a possibility too. Yeah.
I'd start the season with Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, and then probably Tyler Mahle. I don't know if Chris Paddock's going to be probably not ready till
he's probably
half of the year.
Yeah.
So
Late.
Maeda, 6-man rotation, I guess, and maybe Bailey Ober or something. I would start there, give myself a chance to start hot, and then if I needed to make some trades, I'd make some trades.
I think if Paddock comes back, they said September. So I'm throwing it out there. The Twins have operated in very mysterious ways before. I'm recklessly speculating. This is a safe space. Don't shoot the messenger.
That's fair. It's always a safe space.
Reckless speculation.
Okay, my first statement. I am one step closer to being gaslit by the Twins. I am one step closer to be fully back in and gaslit by the Twins. One step closer. I'm not all in yet. But this is a classic Twins move. They need pitching, and I like Pablo Lopez. To Phil's point, if he stays healthy, he probably is the best arm in your rotation. He's a solid number 2-3. In classic Twins fashion, though, again, they're trading for him to be the ace of a staff that, again, on a good staff, Pablo Lopez slots in more like a number 3, potentially a number 2. This team can't pitch. They needed pitching like really, really badly. And although there's still some great options in Bailey Ober and Louis Varland and in-house options that they have never developed that turned into aces, they need to take steps to be better at pitching. Trading Luis Arraez, probably at his peak, for an above-average pitcher, plus a little bit of prospect capital, a pretty solid trade on paper. I agree with Phil's opening statement. But you need a little bit more pitching. Get a little bit more pitching, and Old Dex Tweets probably trots back to target field a little bit more in 2023. But I need to see a little bit more pitching moves before I'm kind of brought back ball in on the 2023 Twins.
This gives them, to me, the way the Twins get an ace is one of two ways. There's develop a guy, get a guy in the Rule 5 or something like Johan. You very rarely find an ace in the Rule 5 draft, but develop a guy from within like a Johan, or trade for a guy who's 19 years old like a Frankie Liriano, and do it that way. And they've had a hell of a time basically since Johan left. They haven't. Barrios for a minute looked like he might be that guy, but he never like fully reached his max potential. So they've literally been looking for that type of an ace for 15 years. The other thing they could do, because their rotation is at least set up depth-wise, unless they trade from it, like I said, to be competitive. This is probably the best the rotation has looked on paper and the deepest it's looked. But they don't have a number 1, like Declan said. But maybe if they start off well, this is a situation where you could go get a rent-a-ace. Whoever the 3-month rental is, overpay a little bit at the trade deadline, and just ride that guy from August, September to October. But the thing is, you got to start the season for the first 3 months and show that you're a winning, healthy baseball team before you can think about doing other things in July.
The key word being healthy.
Right.
The poor new trainer might have the most pressure of anyone brought in.
That's a good statement.
Forget the players. Forget the players. Forget the pitchers. The trainer, it's like, keep Buxton out there for 154. The guy's like, I quit. All right. Here's my next statement about the Twins. Do your job. Do your job. And I am looking at you, Derek Falvey. You were brought here in October 2016. So you've had since the 2017 season. All right. You were brought here as a pitching whisperer. You were going to unearth really good bargains that were going to be fantastic. And most importantly, you were going to replenish this franchise with plenty of young arms who would be ascending left and right now. We would be looking at young men coming up and throwing a multitude of innings and pitching great. I'm going to read to you from a Star Tribune piece that appeared in Sunday's paper about the pitching and the philosophy now, okay?
Yeah.
And see if this rubs you the wrong way, because it certainly did me. Only 5 pitchers drafted by current management have started a game for the Twins, and only Bailey Ober, a 12th round pick in 2017, seems assured of a role in 2023.
Wow.
Falvey was asked about this. Remember, the pitching Mr. Miyagi. I can find pitching. I can find you pitching. It's going to be, this is the difference. This is the between the margins thing where we are going to separate ourselves from the rest of teams that maybe don't spend a ton. All right. I read you from the Star Tribune, the quote about pitching. I don't care where they come from. We need really good starters and we need really good pitchers. Some of those are going to be free agent signings. Some of those are going to be trades. And some of those will also, hopefully, being the key word, be from development. But the goal here is to continue to deepen the starting rotation and pitching staff however we can do it. Dude.
Okay.
Dude. Go ahead, Phil.
So there. Okay. Yeah. He knows though. I think he's just sort of covering his tracks.
But that's the
publicly,
what Dex
right?
is alluding to.
When he says I don't care where they come from, there is a huge distinction here. If you had been developing pitchers for the last 5 years that were popping up into your rotation, guys that you drafted or guys that were international free agent signings, your 16-year-old kids, your 18-year-old, whatever, you wouldn't have to trade or face the conundrum of potentially trading a 25-year-old on-base machine in Luis Arraez with 3 years of team control left to get a number 3 starter. Wouldn't you rather have 5 options that you've developed from within and hold on to Luis Arraez for the next 3 years? Right? And this is where like ownership comes in a little bit. I think people go overboard with the cheap poll ads angle because there is no like real there's revenue sharing in baseball. It's not like the other sports where everyone's kind of operating on the same playing field revenue wise. So could ownership go out and say, screw it, like kind of like they did with Carlos Correa on the 6-year deal and just outbid the next team by $40 million? But it's so risky to go sign free agent pitchers who usually don't hit the market till they're 29 or 30. Their arms are ticking time bombs. The best chance you have to keep a guy healthy and to get value is to develop him arms, put him out on your major league team between ages 23 and 29, and let somebody else pay for his Tommy John surgery when he's 30 or his frayed labrum or whatever, right?
Correct.
So when he says, I don't care where they come from, one of the ways, like if it's free agency, trade, or develop from within, one of those ways is incredibly more valuable and better for your baseball club, especially when you're a mid to low market spending team.
Right.
And the fact that they have failed in that regard means that they have to then trade valuable assets like Arraez to get more pitching. So yeah. I think he knows that. He's a smart enough
guy.
But
he's failing. But he's miserably. I mean, this would be akin to if in 5 years Kevin O'Connell has not found a QB. You were brought here largely to do that.
Yeah.
Derek Falvey he came here. His resume said at the very top, Cleveland Baseball Club, whisperer of finding pitching. Yeah. Corey Kluber was on that list. Think about they basically are playing with a guy who is known for, or supposedly going and getting pitching. They are basically playing dartboard pitching, which is they throw a dart at a board and it's like, we hit Lopez. Yeah. Now we hit Paddock. Now we hit Malley.
And the other thing, too, is they're taking, because they're so, rightfully so, desperate to find pitching, then they start to take risks on guys that have had
correct
shoulder problem, Tyler Malley, or partially torn UCL in Chris Paddock. If they had a plentiful pipeline over 5 years, going back a year ago on the Chris Paddock trade, if they had a plentiful pipeline of good young pitchers, are they really gonna? And that trade didn't like derail the franchise or anything, but are they gonna take a risk like that on a guy that literally had to be sat with a partially torn elbow ligament 3 months, 4 months before you made that trade? No, they're taking more risks because they feel pressure to do so because there aren't guys like this coming up over the last 6 years.
And I saw something, I forget where I read it after the trade about how the Twins now, like some of these young pitchers are starting to come up. It's been 5+ years.
And it sometimes takes, like when you draft, especially when you draft high school arms, like 18-year-olds, or you sign some of these international kids are like 16, 17 when you sign them. It is a 4, 5, 6 year process, but they've also drafted college arms that are 21, 22, 23 when you get them into your system.
5 is what they have so far.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Do your job.
It's bad. Back to a season ticket holder, future season ticket holder, Declan here.
Yeah.
My next statement is, don't tell me you're going to miss Arraez this much. So when he was traded, the outpouring of Twitter and tweets that I saw from people that I follow, and then even, on my tweet deck, I have, hashtag Twins, so I get a bunch of just flooding of fans or media or anyone that has that hashtag. Oh, man, I'm really going to miss going to the ballpark and watching those Luis Arraez at-bats. Is that what really is going to prevent you from not going to Target Field every day now because they traded Luis Arraez? Like, the Twins haven't put out much of a product that's worth going to. It's really difficult to justify paying a lot of money to get into the ballpark, to buy beers and buy hot dogs. Is trading Luis Arraez really going to prevent you from now not going and boycotting the 2023 Minnesota Twins? I call baloney on that. It's expensive to go to a ball game. Luis Arraez, in my opinion, is not the can't-miss player that I can't wait to see when I walk into Target Field.
Yeah,
so get out me to that.
I think it's more like there's already a bunch of reasons that people don't go to the games because the attendance was way down last year. This is just another reason for them to not go to the games. Correa wasn't the attraction, maybe. And Correa also, he's not like your Bryce Harper superstar or, there's 5 or 6 players. Mike Trout is one of them too, where you're going to go because you want to see that guy hit a 480-foot moonshot, right? I think Carlos Correa's value is a little more subtle. Like, he's going to play rock solid, fundamental shortstop, and he's going to get on base and hit singles and doubles and maybe run into 20 home runs. So, and Arraez was kind of that way too, right? If you just love to go to the game and why he's a very nuanced player. If you love to go watch a guy work a pitcher for 9 pitches, check his swing a couple times, and he was a fun guy to watch if you're a hardcore baseball fan. But to Dex's point, it wasn't like Kirby Puckett back in the 90s or Torrey Hunter, some of these dudes that are actual attractions, Johan Santana. So I'm with you on that. Buxton's more of an attraction than Luis Arraez.
I tweeted that exact thing, though. I'm going to miss him. I'm not going to boycott games, but I'm going to miss this. This sport has become so, it feels like, especially at the plate, cookie cutter in its approach because they all launch angle and they get with their hitting coach who tells some Einstein theory of relativity of how to hit, and here's what Newton's physics say about what you should do in the box. The one thing about Arraez from an old school baseball standpoint, his at bats were fun. He literally spit on pitches and then shook his head. That's a ball.
Yeah.
Like, it's stuff like that. I miss that stuff. So yeah, I'm not boycotting, but I did enjoy the fact that he had a very different approach from most people in 2023.
Yeah.
I like that.
So yeah, one more thing on Arraez too. It's a concern I guess I have is that the thing that he's great at, batting average is one, but just getting on base. He was their best on base guy. And if you take him out, and let's see here, Gio Urshela was pretty good at getting on base for the Twins last year, and he's gone. They don't have a long list of guys that are great at just getting on base, be it through working counts or base hits or whatever. The only 2 guys, let's see, correct. So there's the only 3 guys with an OBP of 325 or better that are coming back this year are Carlos Correa, Jorge Polanco, and Jose Miranda. Everyone else has a lot of work to do in the getting on base department, which actually brings me to my next statement. I think this let's call it a 3-year window for the Twins, 3 to 5 year window, because they are in a win. They're not rebuilding. They're in a win now window, despite having come nowhere near the playoffs the last couple of years, right? Like, they are not rebuilding. They're trying to win now.
Yep.
So as important as Correa is and Buxton and this pitching staff, I think the two players that this whole thing hinges on the most, are they going to make a step? Are they going to actually compete? Are they going to win a playoff game? I think it's Alex Kirilloff and Royce Lewis. Because if those two guys are healthy and progressing and playing at the level that they're projected to be at as young players, they would be like 2 of your 4 best position players and hitters. But they can't stay healthy. Royce Lewis, for a number of different ailments, knee and everything else.
Yeah,
and Alex Kirilloff is down to like a last gasp, desperate wrist surgery to see if he can play Major League Baseball for, the next 5 or 10 years. But if those two guys are clicking and they're playing 120, 30, 40 games or whatever it is, and everything else starts to fall into place, this thing they could be a dangerous team. But if not, it kind of wipes out 2 pillar cornerstone guys that you really were going to rely on for the next decade.
They can be a dangerous team potentially if, much like the Vikings, their personnel fits their philosophy. Because like the bullpen is going to have to be, if they're going to continue to do what they did last year, that bullpen is going to have to be damn good. And it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And where is Royce going to play here? Third base? And Miranda, if Kirilloff can't stay healthy, he'll just shift to first base?
I could see Miranda being a first baseman, but Joey Gallo's there's some position flex here. Joey Gallo's first base, DH, some corner outfield. Miranda could be DH, first base, third base. Royce Lewis, whenever he's ready, could be center field, backup, shortstop, and third base.
I got news for you. Joey Gallo is going to play a ton of games in center field.
Or backup center field, yeah.
It's not a backup. It's a thing right now. Seriously. I mean, Byron Buxton, come on. I'd love to see him play a ton of games, but I just don't see it.
Well, yeah, never plays 100 games.
And then if Kirilloff actually, if his arm doesn't disintegrate and fall off, he can play right field a little bit too. Because I think Kepler's gone, right?
They've been trying to trade him, right? And at this point, he's also just been, God, we talk about Sano and the disappointment and some of these other guys. I mean, Max Kepler, from what he did in 2019.
Yes.
And what he was projected to be, he was part of this young nucleus, the contract extension they gave him, which didn't break the bank, but it was like a vote of confidence that we believe in you for the next 7 years.
Ian Polanco.
Whew. He's got a glove. He can cover some ground and he can do some things in the outfield. But Max Kepler is going to turn 30 years old in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think they can get a thing. I think the problem is they've aggressively shopped him, is my guess, and they can't get a thing for him.
He would actually be, and you've been begging for this for years, who's your 4th outfielder? Can Max Kepler at this stage in his career is a perfect 4th outfielder on a good team. Just a guy that, a guy that plays 100 games. He pinch hits. He's a late inning defensive replacement, and he starts like half the games because of injury or whatever.
Yep. He's
That's
great
kinda
and
what he would
right.
be.
Center field, he's nah.
No, but he could. But if
He
you
could
needed
play
a guy to
there.
come in and play some center for like 2 or 3 weeks as a 4th outfielder, he could make it work.
I prefer to trade him.
Any other final Twins thoughts from you guys here?
I'm good.
No.
You guys
No,
are good.
I've
You
thrown
got it
out
all
my-
off your chest.
Yeah, all on my
Okay.
chest now. Then the next trade, we can
Reckless
have another Twins
speculation.
conversation. It'd be great.
I'll miss him. Louis, I'm going to miss you. So screw Declan. He might not. I'm going to miss your
I will
at-bats.
too.
I'm going to miss your joy in the box. I'm going to miss your Rod Crew impersonations.
I will too. He was a fun player to watch. He was a thinking baseball fan's player to watch. Yes.
I miss big league ball players in the box whose stances and tendencies can be repeated by kids playing schoolyard baseball. Like in my day,
I think that the Tom Emanski training videos from the 90s just launched a whole new player,
In
a
the
whole new
80s,
wave of players with the same batting
we
stance.
had like Johnny Walkenfuss, we had Glenn Borgman,
Johnny
we had Rod
Walkenfuss.
Carew.
Yeah, kids.
We had all these guys, Cecil Cooper, all these different stances, Brian Downing, and now it's just a cookie cutter approach by Harvard guys who became hitting coaches, as Royce likes to say.
Come back tomorrow to hear the sports dad yelling at clouds and listing
know,
random
literally-
80s baseball players here.
Literally,
on
get
Mackey
off
and
my
Judd.
front lawn, because that's where I played summer of 6th grade. Get off my front lawn so I can play my damn baseball game.
We need to get sports dad his meds here,
I
and we'll
built a
see
pitching
you.
mound. It was very cool.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.